Ladies and gentlemen, just to refresh your minds, we have the panel discussion on the future of voice technology and Bharat Bhasa. We have with us our moderator, Ms. Neha Gupta, the head of digital experience and APAC CommOps Uber. We have with us Mr. Chirag Boonlia, Group CTO at Embassy Group. Thank you for being with us here, sir. And we have Mr. Raman Kishore, Manager Accountant-Based Marketing at Exotel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And we also have Mr. Ravinder Singh, who despite not being able to be physically present at the destination, was here. So Mr. Ravinder Singh, can you hear us? Okay. It is lovely to have you with us, sir. And now I would hand over the proceedings to ma'am. The stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad to be part of this illustrious panel and to kickstart the discussion on the future of voice technology and Bharat Bhasha. So voice, as we know, it's breaking technology barriers to make interactions simple, intuitive, and personal. Like, India is currently at an inflection point, and there is a study which actually suggests that 76% of the internet users they know about the voice and the speech recognition technology. The voice search actually is expected to grow 40% year on year in India. And this provides a very unique opportunity to engage with customers. So I will actually start off with you, sir, Ravinder, sir, that what do you think are the key drivers for voice becoming so mainstream and it will catapult in the next couple of years in India?
Well, about 9 years back, I wrote a paper, and two patents came out of it, where I kind of claimed that a universal language between humans and machines will appear, and it will actually drive the zero intelligence. Well, zero intelligence hasn't appeared, and but we clearly see a convergence of languages beyond structured languages which were in the compute space. So I think I still believe in that, and I think a lot of use cases across the sectors are coming out of it. That's one. Second, compute cost has gone down tremendously with the advent of cloud, and now with node-based distributed computing, I think the challenge for voice was pertaining to privacy and cognitive sense, what you can take out of that particular voice. I think that challenge is disappearing. Um, um, the real merit of voice or if I say media which will come is vectorization of that, and there we see a lot of startups coming out, a lot of tech happening, which is happening in Silicon Valley and in Bangalore and Israel too. So I think and I'll break this into 5-6 parts. One, I think listen and store part of voice, which is the transactional part, bringing the cost of transaction and the cost of business, from unit economics of doing it through a structured system of records. I think that voice has tremendously brought down. I think so. So there's a great hope that it will carry on and become a large industry. Behavior features in terms of detection, especially the emotional detection part. I think the simplified vectors have come in, and whosoever is able to capture that is becoming a large company. What's Facebook slash WhatsApp is desperately trying to win that particular game. Let's see who else wins that. Customer segmentation based upon those vectors is something which will appear and which will plateau the race, and which will decide who is going to be the winner and who is going to dictate. This is going to be a winner takes all market. So I think that is where the real game we will see in next 4 to 5 years. And then let's see, who captures the intent part of it, which is a game which Amazon has played quite well. Let's see, who are the other factors. To summarize whatever I have said, Look, Neha, there are 5 economies which are dwarfing the current industrial economy or the current definition. Creator economy, platform economy, experience economy, gig economy, and circular economy. All these 5 economies, let's take circular economy. Different the people have different point of view whether voice will increase the compute, hence will be good for environment or not. So I'll keep that out. But if you take all the 4 economies, across sectors, from airlines to IT services and anything in between them, voice will be a critical element in reducing the unit cost of doing business. That I'm quite certain. So from micro perspective, the 3 points which I've mentioned, which is the vectorization, and whosoever wins the game of intent will decide and dictate market for next couple of decades. And from a macro perspective, almost everyone is bullish about voice, because all these newer economies which are going to draw off the current definition of industrial economy, voice will play a pretty important role in that.
Thank you so much. The whole intent part is so interesting, and I think a lot of work needs to be done on just building those intent models, because I'm also seeing with various other offerings in the market, it's all about identifying the intention, just like our previous speaker also spoke about. But just building onto that, Raman, next question to you. Based on your experience, how has different industries, or according to you, what are the industries or the use cases, the functions that have greatly benefited from the voice technology in the previous few years, especially with the post-pandemic, change on the contactless and the touchless? So can you share some insights on that?
Yeah, definitely. Can you hear me? Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the last few years, I think there's been huge acceleration with respect to voice tech adoption, especially after the pandemic. With the entire digital transformation, I think there's been a huge adoption with respect to specifically voice tech across industries. I mean, in fact, voice is the primary channel that's used in every industry that you can think about, right? Be it edtech, the conversation that happens between teachers and students, be it a bank, conversation that happens between your employees and your customers, and etc. And not just these mainstream industries, but also your political parties, the campaign elections that are happening right now also use a lot of voice tech. Just to give few examples here, like for example, one of the political parties that we had actually worked with, instead of having a monotonous tone being played to your basically your candidate, your constituency, you have a more conversational tone played to them, so that you also detect the mood of the customer or the sentiment of the customer, I mean your constituency in this case, and try to understand what your support looks like, and accordingly tweak your entire election campaign and etc. So that is something that's actually pretty interesting that's been happening in the industry. While that's on the political party side, on the other side we have other industries like insurance and banking and even telecom providers, where collection is a very key aspect, right? So I think when it comes to collections, trying to reduce the entire collection cost and improve the collection process is one of the key aspects that everyone's aiming for. And there again, automation was always there, where you call a bunch of people and try to play the collection reminders. But now the idea is to try to make it a lot more seamless, and where you're trying to understand who are those customers based on the conversation that you're having. Of course, many people before me actually spoke about how this can be done. But here the idea is, how can you actually use that to see who's going to pay you and who's not going to pay you, and how can you tweak that to understand how can you actually reach them through other channels. So I think using voice, you can also play with other channels on how you can tweak them to basically optimize the entire process. I think that's what has been happening in every industry.
So that's very fascinating, because what you are trying to say is that there is an inherent multimodal, omni-channel behavior already baked in. But that takes me to the next part of it. that the way you describe the usage of voice today, it's more unidirectional. And I will actually go to you, Chirag, because considering the industry that you come from, the real estate, the retails, which is so much dependent on having that human conversation, the two-sided conversation, which becomes slightly complex. How do you feel that voice tech has impacted, or has these industries leveraged some of the qualities of the voice technology?
Sure. Thank you. So, good to be part of this hybrid panel discussion. I can still say, Ravinder, you are on mute. So, leaving aside that aspect, but yeah, coming from a retail background and starting with the retail part of it, I think, the difference, I mean, as a technologist, we build IT systems. We talk about scale, right? And in a country of 1.7 billion population and with 700 million internet users, the tech divide, the so-called tech divide, is actually a reality. And the only way we can scale this is with the help of tech, right? And then coming to retail perspective, if you see, a good example, almost 12 years back, I was working with a retail major, and we were doing a supply chain, solution rollout for their warehouses. And I remember I was in the tier 2, tier 3 city, Bangalore, Vijayawada, Vizag and all in those days, 12 years back, even cloud was not mainstream. And we were rolling out handheld devices from Motorola to so-called pickers. Pickers are the one who pick up the stocks or SKUs from the warehouses and then put it in the cart for actually shipment to the stores, right? Now, India as a country was or probably is also not evolved at that point in time, that they didn't read the text properly, right? So imagine if the SKU was supposed to be picked as Lux soap and the person doesn't know what LUX is, right? That's an example of how a tech can actually empower and transform the real manual work to a digital work, right? That's an example where it can be leveraged and the tech divide can bring it down, right? And in terms of experiences, we were trying, I mean, it was more of a proof of concept at that time, a very good company which is now well-sponsored and well-funded now. In those days, it was more of a proof of concept where we were trying to do a payment based on the voice tech, right? It's actually mainstream now. They've tied up with Amazon, they've tied up with ICICI, I mean, a good friend of mine. But the point is that it can transform not just the tech divide, but it can also evolve the experiences as well. Now, coming from a real estate, now it's not really relevant from the industry which I belong to. Though in real estate, we are predominantly in the luxury segment. But I'll give an example of IT services. We are also into property management and facility management. Now, the blue-collar workers, again, an example where, it makes life easy, when you have a conversational, voice enabled solution for blue-collar workers, because imagine you catalyze a solution, like as an example, you mix this voice tech with AR and VR, and imagine the kind of impact it can do to the maintenance of the devices. A knock where the expert is probably sitting, an expert can guide an L1 and L2 person to fix the genset or HVAC remotely with the help of AR and a voice tech, right? You don't have to memorize the manuals, you don't have to do all of these things, because there's one resource who can coordinate across the country and then solve the problem, right? Voice tech, when mixed with AI, ML, AR, VR, makes a real compelling case for transcending the technology. And probably I'll wrap up with saying that I was saying that the very purpose of tech is to simplify, magnify, or rather amplify the human ingenuity. And I think all of these techs eventually help us to do and achieve that same. Back to you.
No, thank you so much. That's very insightful, because I am now quite intrigued to understand that some of these AR and VR are already deployed in the real estate sector, and definitely, like especially with the blue collar workers, that would be a boon. Not to sort of memorize everything. But that actually helps me broach the next topic, that whenever we talk about technology in India, right, we always say that you need to build for India and Bharat. Correct. It's like two entire different worlds. And there is a Google KPMG report which actually says that 9 out of 10 internet users, they currently consume content in local languages. And India being such a multilingual language, we already know that Google Assistant is available in 9 languages, and Alexa currently is in just English and Hindi. So my question is, and I'm not sure if I think Ravinder has already dropped off, but perhaps to any one of you, like what do you think would require some of the organizations or these voice tech companies to go regional, more regional, and get some of the next set of 300, 400 million internet users into the mainstream world? Because currently the most of the popular use cases are around just the voice search, the voice assistants, updates, etc. But then what about that Bharat, right, which is multilingual and which is probably low in the literacy level? How do we actually leverage the voice tech and get them onto the mainstream?
I'll probably take a minute and then we'll pass it on to Raman. So, the tech divide which I was referring to in my previous conversation, right? It's actually for real. We live in metros. We believe that, okay, everything is through the QR code, but there is an inertia. There is an inherent inhibition for people to actually, leverage tech to do things. And that can change with the help of voice, because the conversation helps you to actually build that relationship, right? The inertia or inhibition which you see with someone who is not conversant and not comfortable with tech, that can completely be driven away when you start thinking of building a relationship, and that conversation can bring that relationship. So, as I said, as a technologist, we used to build systems around relational databases. It's all about data stored in the system, and then you build the application around it. Conversation actually builds the relationship, and that's the only way a country of 1.7 billion population can think of scaling up and actually democratizing the technology to the masses. And that this is the only way we can reach out to the masses and help everyone get empowered with the help of technology, which we believe that we can't even live without. Can anyone think of living without a Google Map or What 3 Words or Uber, Ola, Zomato, Swiggy? Probably we don't think that way, right? And that's the same thing. It has to empower everyone on the planet, and that can happen only with the help of technology, because that's the only way we can scale.
No, I really like the way you mentioned about conversations, and I firmly believe that India, I think as a country, we have been brought up with the storytelling, the conversations, discussions, and that's why I believe that voice becomes such a crucial tool to sort of enable any growth. So, Raman.
No, definitely. I think I completely agree. Like you mentioned, building relationships is the key for any business, right, with customers, and conversations and voice play a very, very critical part in it. I mean, building relationship is also about how you can actually familiarize with your customer, and how you can actually make him feel at ease while you're talking to him, and that is where I think where voice tech can play a very key role. I think the first step there would be to be multilingual, which I think most companies are anyway doing, and trying to go regional. In fact, only 10% of the entire population is English speakers, and that shows how much of other language are dominant in the other industries. So that is just one part of it. And the second part, to make the customer feel familiar, will also be to understand the tone of the customer. I think that is something that we don't do at a bigger scale right now. It is being done at a smaller scale, but at a large scale, I don't think it's being done. At least to start with, a hybrid system where you can actually assist the person talking to the customer, saying that, like I think like the previous gentleman who had actually presented, assist the customer, the agent, saying that, okay, this is the tone of the customer, these are the possible words you could use, or these are the things that you could actually empathize with the customer. So I think those, one, being multilingual, two, being able to detect the tone of the customer, and three, I think the other problem that most companies are also trying to solve is multiple, like not just dialects, but multiple languages being talked at, like say, English and Hindi. And while talking at the same customer, he talks both in English and Hindi, or say Telugu and Tamil. So that is a key problem that most of people are trying to solve. So I think these are the areas I think if we can solve, I think will add a huge value for the Indian market specifically.
So Raman, just building onto that, we already know that a lot is being spoken about voice bots these days, right? And there are a lot of offerings in the market which says, okay, we are multilingual and all of that. And definitely, I think that there is a way to enhance customer engagement and communication with the voice bots. I just want to understand your views around it, that how voice bots actually have enabled that, if you can share some examples around that, and what is still remaining to be done, as again, I would go back to the Bharat part of it, that, you know, we bring them on board with this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, talking about specific use cases, I think like one in the insurance industry, like, I mean, the entire idea is how can you actually use VoiceTech to actually combine the other channels that are there in the entire communication platform, right? In fact, you see every customer or every organization working with different vendors. Like say they work with the vendor for voice, they work with the vendor for SMS, work with the vendor for say emails and etc. But again, the entire idea is how can you actually use all this data to ensure that your entire customer journey is seamless and smooth, right? It is very difficult when you're actually working with different vendors and putting all the data together and using that in a very usable format is very difficult. I mean, it's highly complex. But imagine going with someone who actually have the entire platform, it becomes a lot more easier. And that's why I think CDP comes into play, the entire customer data platform, which is on the boom right now. I think having all the data, like where you build all your channels around the VoiceTech channel to try and see how we can optimize and work towards the need of the customers. So I think this is what most industries are trying to do. Like just to give an example, like say if I'm looking to buy an insurance, like if I'm looking for an insurance, I go to someone's website. Imagine like a chatbot can actually now talk to me and immediately connect me with an agent, all through AI. Like basically it connects me automatically to an available agent, and who gets on a call with me to understand what is happening. And at the same time, he's able to see what my emotions are based on my voice, and he speaks the right words and etc. And then he seamlessly is able to switch to, say, a video appointment call, where he, as co-browsing or understands what exactly, he assists the customer what to fill and etc. This can either happen in an automated way or with an agent, right? In both cases. So all this data, if it is available with every customer-facing teams, now they can actually talk to the customer with a lot more familiarity. So it all comes back to that. So it's about how you use all the channels to feel very familiar with the customer. The customer calling you should not have to repeat every problem once again or repeat every requirement once again. So I think companies should work towards having all the data and making sure they're using the data to make the customer feel familiar.
So I think that's quite, for me, the takeaway is that voice tech should not be just looked at in silo. I think it could be like the heart and center and working efficiently with the other modalities or the channels that are available. Now, there's another aspect where I find India being very interesting, the way they have utilized the voice tech currently vis-a-vis, let's say, some of the Western markets. In India, the majority of the usage is more still on the voice search. Like voice assistants, like 60% of the smartphone users are actually using voice search for some updates, listening to their favorite songs and things like that. Like voice search itself is geared for 270% growth year on year. That's like a massive market. But the thing is that these are still deterministic. Like you can understand, okay, catching few keywords, okay, this is the search result. This is what the customer needs. Becomes more one end, unidirectional. So again, coming back to you, Chirag, like, in a lot of our industries and for our customers, where this human conversation, the relationship building becomes so critical, where do you think are the challenges currently in the tech stack maturity that needs to be worked upon so that it becomes even bigger in terms of inclusion of different industries, use cases, functionalities? Because currently, I think what we have used it mostly for the search, the FAQs, etc., and some of the low-hanging fruits around that. But when we have to really catapult to the next level, what are the challenges that you see that the technology has today?
Sure. I mean, very, very pertinent question, and one of our, speaker actually touched upon that aspect, if you remember. You know, any new tech, it goes through its own hype cycle, right? And then actual adoption cycle, and then the maturity. That's the normal journey for any evolving tech in the industry, whether it's internet, whether it's AI, whether it's voice tech, whether it's you know, blockchain for that matter, right? So I think at this point in time, you know, leave aside the English part of it, right? The language English part of it, and to an extent Hindi as well, that we probably have crossed that hype stage, and you know, probably we are at the maturity stage where, you know, this can be really tapped or leveraged to create value for the ecosystem, right? However, I believe, and I was reading an article, you know, a week back in one of the leading newspaper, if I remember, that the investment on the local languages has been very low of late. And this is probably the reason that, you know, there could be noise, there could be, you know, edge issues which we normally find out when we actually try and deploy a solution at scale. And it's because the investment or the data which is needed to make it robust is still not there yet, right? The adoption is still not there. And the reason why you said 270% year-on-year growth is unseen and you know, unheard of, because the base is low, right? The base is very low. And it's only when we cross that hype stage is we can actually think of moving towards the maturity stage, and it is then the most of the companies will start deploying it at, you know, to leverage the scale and create value in the ecosystem. So I think the investment or the underlying data to make this successful, because it's all about data and the compute, right? So
Completely
compute,
agree.
I'm presuming that it's actually at the best of its availability. It's the data which is still not there, because, you know, AI or, you know, voice tech needs a lot of reinforced training to make this relevant and impactful. And that can happen only when we start using it more and more. And you know, the tech divide, which I've been referring to again and again, it's like the remaining 300, 400 users of India beyond the metros, if they start using it more effectively and you know, more often than not, it's a matter of time that it will actually come to the mainstream. And it probably, since it builds a relationship more than the physical chat, it would actually overtake the normal traditional, you know, engagement at some point in time. But it's a matter of, you know, if it's a matter of investment, you know, it's a matter of adaptation, it's a matter of crossing that basic hype cycle and then getting onto the mainstream.
No, this is amazing, because I personally find it phenomenal that probably with 2% of the data that our previous speaker spoke about, we have been able to build amazing offerings, which are, you know, which has found utility in the market. But I think the next is that identifying that 98% and sort of churning that to make it for the next big thing. So Raman, a question for you that, you know, like one is definitely the digital divide. And I think in the next few years, we are going to cross it. But even currently, with the voice tech that is available, there are questions around, like one of the gentlemen actually highlighted that the speech to text reliability is a big question mark. I have also even heard about that there are data and privacy concerns around how the voice recordings or the voice is being utilized, especially when we look at the BFSI sector. So what are your views around it that, you know, like while the voice tech stack will keep on increasing, it will include more and more applications across different industries and for customer segments, but then these organizations also need to take care of some of these concerns around data privacy, trust norms. I think, like Chirag mentioned, it's all about relationship. It's all about trust when it comes to voice. So how do we solve for that?
Definitely, I think the two aspects to the question, right? I think one, we spoke about how the entire speech-to-text technology is actually working. I mean, at this point in time, how we've been able to work with clients is that, I mean, we provide rather a communication channel, like a platform, right? Rather, we work with the entire telco community to give basically a solid base on top of which we can have, like say, voice bot companies can come in and start working on, like using the data to provide AI, like basically the entire AI integrated system solutions to the customer. So that being said, right now what we are looking to do with customers is that the entire speech to text, we are focusing on specific use cases that we can work with them, right? So of course, there's a lot of developments that can be done for the future and etc. There are a lot of like my panelist said, I think we can work on a lot of investment that needs to be done. But at this point in time, I think when customers come to you with a key problem, what do we have to solve that problem is what we are looking at. So like for example, with speech to text, we focus on keyword identification for a few of them, like identifying in the collection use case, trying to understand what exactly are the keywords that are being used. So just identifying those keywords is good enough for me to even give them a proper response. So those are some ways in which it's being used right now. But yeah, eventually this can be developed in a much better way to understand the entire tone of the conversation and give a more appropriate answer to the customer. With respect to the entire BFSI segment, yes, there is a lot of security concerns that's come along with it. But as long as you have your entire, entire licenses and how you go about deploying the solutions is taken care of, I think they're one of the first adopters, to be honest. I think when the entire pandemic kicked in, I think the entire BFS segment was one of the first adopters of cloud technology or voice technology for that matter. So they are definitely open to it as long as you have all the security checks in place. Like for example, we just got the MVNO license. Like we are one of the first providers to actually now being able to provide truly cloud experience. Like you can sit anywhere in the, like working from home or wherever you are, you can actually now intermix voice and like PSTN calls. So, but again, so these are few things, a step towards being able to enable customers to, especially BFSI, overcome the security challenges. So these are the things that's being done in the industry, to be honest.
And on this particular theme, I believe the awareness and the communication with the end consumer also plays a big role. So I think these two things go hand in hand, the evolution of the technology and the right kind of awareness that gets spread to the customer. So this brings me to a very interesting analysis that, you know, like in the last couple of decades, we have seen like 90s was the time when organizations were creating, or they should be creating like an internet strategy to be successful. Then 2000s was the time when the search strategy came to the fore. Then 2010s was the time when it was mobile, it was social strategy. And I think right now we are at a cusp where voice strategy will be the next big thing for any organization to be successful. So just taking your closing thoughts on what do you think would be the critical factors for any organization to be prepared and to be successful when they consider voice strategy, not in silo, it's not like a tech IT function, but as an overarching part of their strategy engaging with the customer.
Yeah.
Chirag.
I mean, I'll probably start again. So, you know, voice tags, like, you know, the strategy for making your services and goods available in the Google search and Yahoo search. I think the voice search, which when it's taking, mainstream stage, it's extremely important that when we build those goods and deliverable goods and services which are there as an offering are searchable on voice as well, and then voice tags becomes extremely important. It cannot be an afterthought. It has to be done right probably now because it's being used as we talk. And beyond that, you know, what I feel is invariably, as you rightly said, the tech cannot be thought through, in silos. You know, it's not that you take a tech and then decide what problem to solve. There's a problem there, and then you try and solve with the help of technology, and then voice being, a relationship enabler of sort, you can mix the various modes of various channels of various tech solutions and then solve a problem. So where a business, heads hat and try to solve a problem with the help of multiple technologies, and voice can become one of the most important element as well.
No, +1 to that.
Definitely. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, As an organization, if I'm actually looking for like solutions in the market, like be it VoiceTech or any other technology for that matter, I think two things. One, I need to identify what my problem is. Once I identify, I need to see exactly how VoiceTech or any other tech for that matter can help me solve that problem as an immediate need, right? Of course, it has to not be looked in silos. There are two ways. One, how can this help my customer have a better experience? And two, how can also this impact my business from a cost perspective? So I think if these two things are looked at while adopting any technology, I think VoiceTech will have a key role to play when it comes to communication.
No, thank you so much for your inputs, and I think we are probably living in such special times where the future will be more personalized, more proactive when we start utilizing some of these technologies at their full potential. So thank you so much, panelists, for such an engaging
Pleasure.
discussion, and I hope the audience also enjoyed the insights coming out of it. So have a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a wonderful discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Let us have it for Miss Neha, Mr. Raman, Kishore, and Mr. Chirag, Boonlia, and of course, Mr. Ravinder Singh, who joined us virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of voice tech discussed beautifully by this panel. Thank you so much.